Dear Tom Homan, you seem like a great guy, but you still are medicine's corruption and drugs crimes and delusions wrought with people you're countering. You have collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists, where and how you can't discern it too. Tactically delusions wrought with psychiatry, putting fake things in databases, fake transcripts. You have to be able to discern that's the least plausible. Interbranch has been switching, forging names and sequences. Increasingly, these are people with the state corrections offices and conjunctions to it, involved with the Cololo family and the Smith family with near me, with foreign and domestic military, right through wars, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake passions and emotions, fake motivations, differences, racketeering worse than war crimes. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same exact time, with nature's identity itself projecting to us about difference. We have differences rackets. You guys can't even explain how and why. You guys we have sustained collusions with counters to sexual offenders, sexual predators with the campuses as the counters to it as collusions. There are people with the security families that used to be, and the ones still with the schools with Wethersfield and intercities involved too. Further with the Board of Education with the Michael Emmett and the roles with that intercities and their narratives, their syntax regarding getting a new guy before they got this, they're hiding it. And Michael Emmett is further involved with the whiting forensics with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with a Phil Cololo and others involved on my street since too, with a Bob Chase involved with violence on my area, identity theft, fraud, slanders. You guys with evidences, predicate acts with facts, evidences racketeering worse than war crimes, and then you guys want to go speak about crimes. You guys have been put roles with all kinds of natures of drugs and medicines, crimes, sick things, torture, extortion, slavery, communicating other than our founders communicated to have communicated for themselves too. Our founders, plural. I read that we were supposed to refer. They asked us to refer to themselves plural as James Madison singular, and they were using his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to help them and to use that plan. And that's why I had to come to Counter Store at Hartford and Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. There are internationally monitored conversations entrenched forest, all kinds of natures, organized terrorism, extortion. When did they separate? Are they still? They're forcing separated topics like witch trials, even though how there's a witch trials place right next to Webb House, renamed the Webb Stevens Museum, though, and still just setting up the sensibilities to screen for the breaching method further, because it's further communicating other than our founders communicated about what that house is about. And slavery was entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies right through the Civil War. James Madison's plan caused the Civil War. It's not some special morality North or South had. James Madison's plan forced the rest of the founders, which is still being forced because the Constitution is still abridged. You guys still can't follow mandated law. Simple things, 3 branches of government, and play it stupid. They're forging and switching names. Clearer than day. I mean, with all respect, all day, clearer than day. It's not hard to keep them criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, readings of statutes and precedents. They can't afford to defend properly with fact treatments exceptions. They can't get on paper now. They already painted themselves in corners. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family members are increasingly collusions with prosecutors like Soulsby, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people on Covington Street in New Britain, involved also with judges and prosecutors. They can't make that up with sexual and medical offenders of kids, drugs and medicines crimes too, because they've been roles with collusions with the Leahy family too. They attached me to fake conversations with them at Hartford Hospital and about legal cases where they have roles with federal criminals and their family members in those cases. Mark Violet, recorded, confessed, demonstrated. I never saw him around. Paul Zano. Paul Zano's involved with identity theft frauds with Mark Violet. And I mean, in other words, all these people with Hartford Hospital involved planting evidence on my street since they were kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, and sequence shifts and their roles with their putting fake things in databases. Mark Violet, the Eastern States Narcotics Drug Task Force, too, is involved with UConn, with lawyers and all kinds of legal scams at Harvard Hospital with the businesses and houses next to it through time. Intercities also with houses next to campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them. And on Facebook. These are people with the Facebook page of a principal upskirt nature that I've recorded involved with other worse digital crimes with detectives and retired police chiefs and their intimate ties involved with the same house of 80 Carriageville Drive, with more than one Ray Collo involved, and extended family members of theirs, with judges and prosecutors. They are proofs interstates. In other words, and increasingly they're fishing for means to cover up the things that came before that. Increasingly with people that with the Wethersfield police attached me to fake conversations, even being at the police department as a kid and then as an adult. And then they pretended that through the news to hide their lie progressions because they've been identity theft, fraud, slanders, intercities through time. Whole bunch of people tied to this Mazzucato bakery and a police chief Cintron, and 1 year before that with their intimate ties. And their roles at the corner of streets on Elm Street years before they have a Mazzucato bakery there. With people on my street, I never saw them together. A Collo family is involved with that corner with through different businesses, involved with a whole bunch of other people like with the name Oliveri and with the name Violet, involved with their educators with identity theft, fraud, slanders against people that aren't even in classes with them. And they may pay exceptions. They use criminally foreign influence too, like with Eric Oliveri. And these are people with the markets positions. Now it's different. They have it all with the phones and things like that. Increasingly, they're sabotaging my ability to make an income. Also, they've been planting evidences with people next to and communications with people at boxing gyms that are involved with the same house, involved with the police forging and switching names, with the Wethersfield police that attached me to fake conversations as a kid, now as an adult, a whole bunch of them with roles with it. I knew he would look like a scumbag. What's his name? A police chief, Poison. I saw a picture. I hope that's the right one because in other words, he looks like a scumbag because he is a scumbag as is actually recorded, but they're changing and faking digital evidences. And they have wire crime action methods, whole predicate action methods with WFSB too. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack. After the World Trade Center attack, instantly recording their collusion/S with people named Scalora, with Central Connecticut City University involved with these countries like Saudi Arabia, intercities, and with people all along Route 3 with the state judicial branch offices, foreign and domestic military involved on my street through time, like with the J. Salvatore and other Marines involved with identity theft, fraud, thing. I don't know if he knows. If he pretends he had a word of conversation with me, I don't have a conversation with him. People from Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with a Burstein and others with the intelligence family like the name Kolvinskis and Violet with some KKK black theme, Confederate flag theme confessions and roles with identity theft frauds, while their identity racketeering natures pretending passions and emotions, behavior racketeering worse than war crimes tied to the people. This is, a number of judges first involved with the Leahy family, but then there was other further. There's a Judge Killian involved with various natures of drugs and sexual and medical crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and relative delusions, speaking them into databases, fake things, sequence shifting, with the Judge Killian involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. His family is involved also with media racketeering, worse than war crimes, as his neighbors too. These are people with criminally foreign influence use of location/S while being and having been used remotely, shown needs to hide that. And there are other probate court judges with the same house/S involved with them. A bunch of people tied to it as Kevin Dillon, involved with the Parks and Recreation too, with drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, right with the people supposed to counter such. They're putting fake uses of drugs and alcohol. They're trying to frame people at the same time while they're trying to film illusions to make it look like people have fake ties, fake natures of ties to people, and fake motivations because they're hiding their roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, with grammar school kids and middle school kids, the same kids that are putting fake things in databases. Before that, and with the kids next to all the campuses I went to have connections with this, influenced by others. They're putting fake ties between fake natures, but ties between people, and they're increasingly building on this. I've been asking you guys since before the World Trade Center attack to get one person on paper. The courts of Hartford and New Britain Superior Court, they effected confessions submitted at West Hartford locations and New Britain locations by foreign and domestic military involved with the Hartford courts. And the FBI was, I didn't know at the time, former director of the FBI and Robert Lusk and his co-defendants, their family members, and the outside the depositions, and their lawyer is involved with various natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, and federal evidences crimes with the courts involved that requested that the deposition be there. They offered to host the deposition there, not legitimately, as collusion /S before the World Trade Center attack, and since with people involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts. That with the news at the same time with the interbranch that are refusing to identify themselves. Brian Silver is one of the ones involved with the district court in Connecticut, a district court involved also with Thaddeus Skabowski and a bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News, with a bunch of natures of organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders against people that I don't even know, trying to make fake exceptions as people with the name Mendez and Domain, also in sexual and medical offenders of kids, with New Britain Superior Court and the Wethersfield Police Department, and those spots next to Hartford, next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, Connecticut. They're also involved with differences racketeering and with Saudi attackers through others. Our side was effectively uses like where they see their uses of everyone using the word with the words extremism and radical as an evidence. Like all of a sudden, because they read something, they're saying, "Oh, what's your evidence?" They want to go what people who read or what using our founders' words, leaving out the what they declassified about that, about how no one had free speech and everyone's speech was measured. They had to pretend other to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sentenced, including through their lifetimes. And that wouldn't even be debatable if people didn't have passions and emotions at all locations and online that were our collusions to force things. Not true there. So they could say, "Oh, we'll sue," and to keep the other names involved. As courts, they are also doing the same thing, including with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and lawyers, their sources, their family members, the neighbors. The same thing with the courts, the same thing with the police forms, same thing with mayors, the family members, neighbors, different nature of conjunctions to them. At the same time with the news, they're kept meaning to hide the same sequence. Yes, finally, active progressive lies, self-value, rules of predicate acts with facts, methods, using words like truth or lies anyway. That's why, in other words, everyone's trying to figure out how to speak about this. And then they're using truths or lies, exactly the way the breaching method knew they would do, not discerning itself. But it's discernible. A breaching method discernibly hyper foreign had a distinct nature of hyper criminally foreign influences that it kept and keeps blamed to other things, others ourselves, like criminal foreign influences, even when correctly more and more as it's only going to be. Exactly the way it wanted and needs to keep its collusions out, with the differences racket still. People are involved with diversity and inclusion because they have been child abused at campuses A through Z, and the differences of it, pretending they could say any one of them spoke legitimately for the sciences. The honest science shows that the suburbs were designed tactically to nature before our founders were born to be a landscape theater, while the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, action nature, more and more would be to self-value rules with the imposed by the human fact, human nature breaching method before our founders were born. Value nature system with mass farming, but in all that, and the syntax tied to it, all those natures of jobs, like how about all those people stacked in the buildings behind the people in rap videos and people in the background with passions and motives? I should get a job. And then looking around the job. In other words, how many people fit in the burger joint at the end of when you walk down. By the time you walk down that building, how much energy you have left? Then you gotta go to school when you're a little kid. New York City, this design by a breaching method was designed the suburbs before our founders were born, and the colonists didn't want it. There were internationally monitored conversations, roles of overt criminal enterprises, terrorists. When did that stop being collusions which trials are about? And the people next to the Webb House, next to it, with Webb House, where George Washington had to come to counter extort. No, renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Still, other communicated about it than what is actually recorded proper science about it. The nature of debate, there too. Note the people saying, "Oh, do you know this or that?" Using the fish and sensibilities for the breach, like the breaching method needs. In other words, not the same thing with the Old Testament and with the Quran too. For example, the beginning of the Old Testament has a part that says, "Only defend with it." Right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. No one even knows about this part. In other words, then they can't be honest about the knowledge of good and evil, and they can't be honest about the difference of it. And that comes after that part. This is only defend right here. No, so they can't be honest about that Trinity. No, which is not the Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Spirit, whatever. In other words, that you guys can't even appreciate any lot. Like if I said, "Don't shoot until you will see the whites of eyes," is probably having been cipher for us to decipher, because we know our founders didn't have free speech, and where and how we don't, people would say, "Oh, that's not true." Their logic, nature of logic, fact, human nature, quality, aspects, need, it comes with proofs of the same thing. But we haven't had that countered and overcome relative to where and to how Connecticut interbranch have been forging and switching names. A bunch of people at the Britain Superior Court, personally, professionally, have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with people named O'Brien and Colo and DeSimone, with various natures of police departments intercities, including with intelligence with Newington and Glastonbury, associated with these people named Scalora, involved with people with the name Colo and tomorrow will court express them, confirm them involved with federal evidences, crimes, and Wethersfield police with them as their cousins. These are people also with the World Trade Center attack at the court next to the World Trade Center, people at the World Trade Center, and with places next to it, other too, involved with all kinds of federal evidences, crimes, with the news, putting fake conversations about the World Trade Center attack too, since lying about legal cases. Harvard Hospital has all kinds of foreign and domestic military. We're going to go further into their roles with such because you guys, they're refusing to get on paper. They get me off the fake conversations with the Leahy family and get them on paper into cities with the police and a whole bunch of names next to Harvard Hospital, like a Mayana family house per him, and ones with the name but the tomorrow's market, and where it is now, where it used to be next to Harvard Hospital and Io's Kitchen, is increasingly involved people directly and indirectly involved with them with all kinds of natures of predicate acts with facts, identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts, their roles of passions and differences rackets with the intelligence next to those spots, next to Central Connecticut State University, and next to Trinity College. The Io family also has with Oliveri family involved with sexual groups next to there, like with the people. They have all sides of issues, religious spots too. The people of the gay groups pretending to be against, countering it as collusion, even if they are really against it, there are collusions with it. They're involved with identity differences, rackets, cover up because there were differences in cases. These are also people involved with murders and untimely deaths while they're playing passions and emotions, fake things next to campuses and fire departments, intercities, involved with the names with the fire department next to Trinity College, increasingly involved with people planting evidence so others could take a look and film fake things with something to do with the fire departments and with this ILO family and with a whole bunch of ones tied to a Ray Colo and a Joe DeMauro with former mayors involved with their educators from my grammar school, putting fake things in databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And since, and with people before that too. And next to each of the campuses I went. There's a Ray Reynolds recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and increasingly involved with people next to a kindergarten I went to, which is the only time I ever saw him on a campus. Ray Reynolds. I was a kindergarten I went, and that school closed a year later. And the people next to that school are increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And I noticed concentrated they have collusion /S with the judicial branch offices and with various natures of probation court families and superior court and with the people with the district court involved next to the news locations and at the news locations with predicate acts with facts. And they're recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed consciously, pretending people are saying things bad about them by preventing us a response in paper to keep the wrong outcomes. They're sequence shifting and hiding the other names involved, like a Thaddeus Grabowski is involved with people named Mendez and Domain, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids in my area through time, including with the ones with the name. Like at Trinity College, putting fake things in the databases with the Joshua Stryker, involved planting evidences with FBI and criminal enterprises, people involved with the witness protection program, involved with the corner of Griswold Street and Fairlane Drive, with the people that have been planting evidences at the campuses I went and not getting onto paper. So with Joshua Stryker is planting fake things at databases between campuses I went, with people involved, increasingly with confessions tied to my neighbors that were designed to make fake instances, make it look like I knew them. And these are people who also lied to my family and to like people I knew from other towns. I never, like, in other words, to have the FBI get involved with such games and courts and their family members. Increasingly, East Hartford location has a Jennifer, someone tied to a Tony DeMauro. One time a Tony DeMauro jumped out of her window. And he's like, jump out. And then the other time, out of a girl who said her name, they said her name was, I don't even ever had a personal conversation with her or her mother. You know, I just left through the door that time because that was the second time, and I knew they was doing it. That's why I set his girlfriend up on someone else. I went on the dead right away, right after I met a girl that she knew. When I was a freshman, increasingly former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and mayors have time collusion /S. Also with terrorists recorded now too, clearer than day. All kinds of criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents. Facebook making me go like this. They're involved with all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slander with New Britain Superior Court, Wethersfield Police, and the campuses involved with a principal upskirt nature, and more people with whiting forensics involved with them with that too. And the FBI. FBI is also involved with worse than criminal incompetence, federal evidences, crime rackets, criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents, tactically delusions raw. At the same time, Tom Homan, please do follow mandated law and get them on paper, one name and sequence. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, because they're preventing, with the intelligence next to them, me from speaking about their recorded roles with murders, intercities, and untimely deaths and other sick things at the same time they brought up intercities, as ones involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts, before the World Trade Center, shortly before it, long term, and then in it. As people involved with Central Connecticut State University, through time, intercities and interstates and internationally. These are people from Mexico and from Canada, involved also with families next to it that are connected for themselves by others, and their roles, time, collusion with overt criminal enterprises and terrorists. All this is recorded. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB and the interbranch. Let's get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's go. And in other words, Facebook, let's get them on paper too. They don't want to follow mandated law. They want to play games. Oh, that's our policy. And that's what we're trying to make the system work. They were played. They were criminally foreign influence while tactically delusions wrong. No, though, but to replace the phrase free speech with freedom of expression. Now let's get them on paper with the interbranch refusing to identify themselves. If that was one of the ones in one of the advertisements for Facebook with the name Celeste Wells, she's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime acts, with judges and prosecutors, and foreign and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people putting fake things into databases with their teachers against people not even in the same class with them, people they don't even know. They try to make fake exceptions, and they lie about their motivations for it. As time collusions with all these different countries at the same time. Increasingly, people connected to intelligence families that used to live in my area, who are increasingly time collusions with multiple police departments, with the retired Wethersfield police chiefs involved with this, Whiting forensics with state police, with the same house/S involved with a whole bunch of people like Mike Roberts and Eric Jensen, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also involved with the Ray Reynolds, with the houses next to my grammar school, my kindergarten, that are increasingly involved with medical and sexual offenders of kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, people putting fake things in databases, fake ties and fake natures of ties between people. Increasingly with former retired police chiefs and their roles with Sound View with the Mazzucato family, and people tied to the ones that know my name, I don't even know their name. These are increasingly people involved with the spots next to Central Connecticut State University, like a Kyle Gill and his a Tanya Gill and their Jose Gill. I don't know his mother's name, but she's involved with a hot dog place near there, and which is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the intelligence families, intercities with them through time, involved with organized crimes with people at the judicial branch offices and corrections offices, also involved with medical campuses, with the elements of unmarked police forms and things like that, where they're involved with all kinds of changing. If they're only capable of changing and faking things, including all offensively identity theft, fraud, slanders with other countries, foreign and domestic families, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign, at the same time, medical families too, at the corners of streets, hiding life progressions tied to such. They can't speak about difference legitimately. So they have the types of sciences that can't do that. They have self-value roles with it, and then they show the people that's what they have to entertain if they want to be an expert on that science. In other words, please get them on paper, one name and sequence. A whole bunch of people tied to Detective Samudo, also involved with the FBI, with sexual and medical offenders of kids between different campuses, and the ones with like Elena Davenport and Heather Hansen, with both of them with different rape syntax and context, and rules with Joe DeMoro said they have roles with that, tied to syntax with Heather Hansen on church and names on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, tied to one's named Cololo, and they're me with them with that. Has something to do. A bunch of houses on Church Street involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences crimes with interbranch, with the judicial branch offices and corrections offices that are also putting predicate acts with facts in databases and keeping other things, others ourselves blamed, not just for the breaching method, which is replaced right from the communications of our founders. Please follow mandated law for someone at last. Start class.